Fret not if you don't see your favorite Mars science fiction on here. It might just be absent because I'm saving it for the top 10 Mars science fiction list at the end of the week. First up is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. The Expanse series is a great reading experience. The first book in the series, Leviathan Wakes, introduces us to some spacers mining ice in the asteroid belt when events conspire to pull them into a whirlwind of events, including exploding ships, a missing girl, and a mysterious alien protomolecule. Among the crew is eventual Captain James Holden. Holden becomes notorious for speaking his mind, perhaps more than he should, and landing himself and his crew in the center of all the political drama and intrigue between the Earth, Mars, and those of the asteroid belt. Mars, Martians, and the Martian government playing a significant role in the series. Park this on the Mars Essential list. This would also be a fine fit for tomorrow's episode, Essential Martian Science Fiction. The Sands of Mars by Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke travels to Mars to check things out and gives a great scientific report on what he saw. Kinda, but not exactly. Though it felt like it could have been Clarke, it was actually his protagonist, Martin Gibson. Gibson, like Clarke, is a science fiction writer, and he gets the honor of a months-long interstellar trip to the Red Planet on an amazing, gigantic space vessel. The idea is to visit Mars, check out the domed colonies and colonists, and report back about them and about the trip. An early novel-length work for Clarke, the prose is strong and the relationships between Gibson and the crew, one crew member in particular, is compelling. The obstacles, challenges, and adventures on Mars make for a great Mars read. This is a space opera with good doses of drama, scientific and technical imaginings, and a fun examination of a fictional Mars. How about Red Planet by Robert A. Heinlein, published in 1949? You can't have a Mars week without Robert A. Heinlein, and while a certain adult novel featuring the man from Mars is the more famous work, don't overlook this juvenile classic. Heinlein has written some great young adult science fiction, and my two favorites are Have Spacesuit Will Travel and Red Planet. In Red Planet, kids at a private school on Mars befriend a Martian being that they keep as a pet. When the schoolmaster confiscates their pet, they send out to rescue him. The headmaster turns out to be a pretty nefarious character, and with the help of the human colonists and the native Martians, they set out to turn the tables on this bad dude. While this is a juvenile read and I recommend it for younger readers, I also recommend it for classic science fiction fans and those who've read or plan to read Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, as there exist quite a few crossovers between the two books. In both books, sharing water with a Martian is considered by Martians to be a significant bonding moment. Martians have the ability to make people and things disappear, and after death, Martians seem to have an afterlife in which they are spoken of as the esteemed Old Ones. Red Desert Point of No Return, or Punto di Non Ritorno, by Rita Carlo Francesca Monticelli. This Mars novel by Italian author Monticelli at times left me breathless, pun intended. This is one of two books that I've read in Italian. The other was Dick's Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, and that's neither here nor there. Technically, I read about a third of this in Italian, and then realizing my Italian wasn't as strong as it used to be, I had to switch over to the English translation. This is a great read, and one that I forgot to include in my top 210 science fiction books episode. It definitely belongs there. Point of No Return hooks you right away and never lets off the gas. Swedish exobiologist Anna Persson on a Mars mission sneaks out on a rover and travels alone into the cold Martian desert with just 2 days worth of supplies. This seems like suicide wish fulfillment. While on the trek, she digs into her memory, bringing to mind the events that led her up to that point, what and who she left behind, and truly brings the reader into her story. The description of the Martian landscape is very effective and allows you to get a real feel for the hostile terrain of the planet. This is a story of adventure and mystery, introspection, hope, and survival. Princess of Mars, John Carter of Mars series, the Martian series or Barsoom series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Despite my not loving these, John Carter has to be on any list of essential Mars fiction. This is basically a pseudo-Superman on Mars situation. It's thrilling adventure and a gratuitous hero getting the hottest lady payoff stuff. There's several books in this series. The first book, Princess of Mars, is the most famous. The protagonist in the story is John Carter, a Confederate captain who fought in the American Civil War. That, along with a 1912 publication date, should be enough to give you enough entry into what you are walking into. Carter mysteriously ends up on Mars. Burroughs imagines Carter to have incredible power, having grown up on the heavier gravity of Earth. Lucky for him, because Mars, known by the natives as Barsoom, is a dangerous place. There's any number of beasts and aliens available for Carter to pound and kill, while Burroughs maybe has views on masculinity, society, and the human condition that influence his work here. The writing isn't so strong and deep that it is felt in the reading experience. This is just a fun action-adventure among a red planet setting as imagined by a 1910s mind. Man Plus by Frederick Pohl. The first two novels that I think of when I think of Man Plus, besides other Mars fiction, are Peter Watts' Starfish and John Brunner's Stand on Zanzibar. Pohl is dipping into overpopulation themes, in some ways reminiscent of Zanzibar, and then there's bioengineering that brings to mind Starfish. In Man Plus, Roger Torroway is biologically altered, extremely so, in order to survive the environment on Mars. Mars is possibly the future destination of humanity. Given climate change and the real threat of nuclear apocalypse, Mars might be the best plan B for Earthlings. Enter the Man Plus project. Engineer and modify humans so they can, without having to wear spacesuits and live in domes, exist in the inhospitable Mars environment. How Roger deals with this makes for an interesting character, which stands out among a cast of less exciting characters. Great about the story is the departure from the maybe exhausted trope of terraforming planets to make them a legitimate future home. The idea of altering ourselves to make Mars a realistic home feels very fresh in this classic. Farewell Earth's Bliss by D.G. Compton, published in 1966. Society's others, its outcasts, are shipped out, shipped away to another planet. That's the sci-fi. These marginalized folks are sent to Mars. Out of sight, out of mind. These exiles, political dissidents, criminals are gay, black, and other looked down upons, and represent a segment of society that doesn't often show up in 1960s science fiction. For those who need to know, slurs are used by some characters in the book, and if that's something that you prefer to avoid in your reading, I've now made you aware of that. The focus of the story is not really on the science fiction, it's on the group of people being deported from the Earth. The story primarily follows the point of views of 9 of these outcasts, in the beginning at least. These 9 travelers, along with a dozen others, who we don't really get to know, are shipped out together and dumped on Mars. We get to see how these people take to their new setting, how they interact with and are treated by those already on the penal colony. It's not pretty, and there is a lot of darkness presented, and there are some very heavy social themes. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Leverts, and this is Fit to be Read.